Let him doubt. Let him spend his nights questioning whether he walked away from something real. Let him sit with the silence you left behind, a silence that says more than any long text or final phone call ever could. Because your silence is not a sign of weakness, it's a declaration of strength. It says, I know who I am, and I refuse to fight for a place in the life of someone who was willing to let me go. You're not punishing him. You're not playing games. You're simply choosing peace over performance. And that kind of maturity, it's rare, it's powerful, and believe me, it doesn't go unnoticed forever. You see, people expect noise after they hurt you. They expect begging, closure, seeking explanations, drama, but when you give them nothing, that's when they start to panic. That's when doubt begins to creep in, because now it's quiet. Now there's no version of you chasing after them, reminding them of how much you cared. And that quiet forces them to confront a question they thought they'd never have to ask. Did I just lose someone irreplaceable? Let him wonder. Let him play back the last time you spoke and analyze your tone, your expression, your calmness. Let him scroll through old messages searching for signs that you were hurting, signs he missed, while he was too busy thinking the grass might be greener somewhere else. Let him wonder where you are now. Who's holding the space in your life that used to belong to him? Let him wonder what it feels like to be loved by someone who sees you fully the way he couldn't. Wonder is uncomfortable when it follows certainty. And he was certain you'd never walk. He was certain he had time, but time ran out, and now all he has is the echo of everything you once offered freely, and the haunting thought that no one else may ever give it like that again. Regret comes quietly at first. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It shows up in the slow realization that the version of you he once knew, the one who forgave too much, stayed too long, gave without asking, is no longer available. It's not just that you moved on, it's that you leveled up, you healed. You built a life so beautiful that there's no longer a door he can knock on, and that hits hard. Regret doesn't come when he's out partying or distracting himself. It comes when he's alone, when he looks in the mirror and sees a man who let something pure slip through his fingers, not because it wasn't real, but because he wasn't ready. But here's what you have to remember. His regret is not your responsibility. His doubt is not your burden, and his wondering is not your cue to return. This story isn't about him anymore. It's about you choosing yourself. It's about you refusing to beg to be chosen. Because the moment you stopped fighting for someone who wouldn't fight for you, that was the moment your healing began. So let him doubt, let him wonder, let him regret, but you keep walking, keep rising. Keep becoming the version of yourself that doesn't need validation to feel whole, because real strength isn't in who you convince to stay. It's in knowing when to let go and never look back. There's no need to wait for an apology that may never come. No need to seek closure from someone who couldn't even offer clarity. You've given enough. You've stayed long enough. You've cried enough. And now your healing no longer requires his understanding, only your permission to move forward without him. Let him doubt, let him wonder, let him regret. Because while he's replaying what he lost, you'll be rewriting your story not as someone who was abandoned, but as someone who rose from it, stronger, wiser, unshakably whole. Silence isn't retreat. It's not surrender, it's power, it's growth. It's the decision to stop begging someone to see you when they've had more than enough chances. And what they'll remember most, what they'll feel long after your name stops lighting up their phone, isn't the words you said, but the moment you stopped saying anything at all. That's when it hits them. That's when the weight of everything you brought into their life starts to feel real. That's when they realize you're gone. We're taught to believe that love has to be loud, that fighting for someone means proving you care, proving you're strong enough to stay. But real strength, it's in the letting go. It's in the decision to preserve your dignity even when your heart is still bleeding. It's in sitting with the ache of silence and still choosing it over the noise of confusion, excuses, and half love. When someone doesn't choose you with certainty, your silence becomes a boundary, a line in the sand that says, I won't beg for clarity, commitment, or crumbs. And you know what? That silence becomes louder in their mind than any words ever could, because it forces them to ask themselves questions they're not ready to answer. Why did she stop reaching out? Why is she not chasing anymore? Did I lose something real? Those questions echo in the emptiness you leave behind. And here's the thing, silence doesn't mean you didn't feel pain. It doesn't mean it didn't break you to walk away, but you did it anyway. You didn't retaliate. You didn't try to make him jealous. You just stepped back, quietly, gracefully, and let the absence of your energy speak for itself. Because people remember energy, they remember how you made them feel, and when that energy is no longer there, when the warmth, the support, the unconditional effort disappears, it's like a part of their world goes dim. And that's when they feel it. That's when the doubt begins to crawl in. That's when they start to wonder if they'll ever find someone who gave them what you did, the way you did, as effortlessly as you did. But by then, you're gone, not bitter, not angry, just unavailable, evolving, healing, outgrowing the version of you that thought you had to fight to be chosen. So don't underestimate the strength it takes to go quiet, to walk away without burning bridges, without throwing stones, without trying to be understood. That kind of strength is rare, that kind of silence. It doesn't just speak, it echoes in his mind, in his memory, in his regret, because it's easy to overlook something that always shows up. It's easy to take love for granted when it's constant, when someone keeps checking in, keeps forgiving, keeps showing up. Even after being hurt, that kind of love feels endless. But it's not. You were patient, not passive. You gave him space, not permission. And one day he'll realize he mistook your softness for weakness. That's the day it all starts to hit. He'll remember how you stayed when things got hard. How you believed in him when he didn't even believe in himself. How your support never wavered, not when he was distant, not when he was inconsistent, not even when he made you feel invisible. You were there. Solid, steady, the calm in his chaos. And because you were always there, he thought you always would be. But now you're not, and that absence, it's going to start to feel loud. The thing about consistency is it doesn't seem rare until it's gone. Until he finds himself surrounded by people who don't care the way you did, who don't listen as deeply, who don't notice the things you used to pick up on without him saying a word. That's when the comparison begins. That's when he realizes your kind of love wasn't ordinary, it was exceptional. And here's the part that will haunt him. You didn't leave with anger. You didn't try to make him pay. You just stopped showing up in the ways you used to. You stopped trying to prove yourself. You stopped justifying your worth. You stopped waiting for him to figure it out, because you finally understood that loyalty should be mutual, not earned over and over again while he stayed undecided. So let him doubt you now, let him talk himself into thinking he made the right call. But doubt doesn't last forever. Doubt turns into reflection. Reflection turns into realization, and realization, that's when regret takes root. That's when the what-ifs begin. What if she was the one? What if I gave up something real? What if I never find that again? By then, though, you've already grown into someone who no longer craves his clarity. You've become your own peace. You've learned to love yourself in the same consistent way you once loved him. And that's your power now, because consistency isn't something you fake. It comes from who you are. And the right person, the one with real emotional maturity, won't fear it. They'll crave it, they'll recognize it, and more importantly, they'll reciprocate it. So don't shrink yourself just because someone couldn't meet you where you stood. Let him learn in his own time, in his own silence, what he lost when he let you go, because while he's doubting, you're evolving, and eventually his doubt will become the very thing he can't escape. It won't come in a dramatic wave all at once. It'll sneak in slowly, piece by piece, through the little things. The way you used to look at him like he was the only one in the room. The way you remembered the details, even when he forgot the basics. The way your love was consistent, patient, and full of grace, even when he didn't deserve it. In those moments, the quiet, unexpected ones, he'll start to wonder, where did you go? Who are you with now? Does someone else get to hear your laugh? Does someone else hold your attention the way he used to? The wondering will ache because it won't come with answers. You won't be there to reassure him anymore. You won't be the one he calls when life gets messy. He gave that up. He traded certainty for curiosity. And now that curiosity will follow him into every room he walks into, quietly asking, "Did I mess up the best thing I ever had?" Because your love wasn't ordinary. You didn't hold back. You showed up emotionally, mentally, physically, even when you weren't being met with the same. And that kind of love doesn't just disappear from someone's life without leaving a mark. He may not have known it then, but you were the safest place he had. You were the one person he never had to question. But now he'll have nothing but questions. That's the cost. That's the quiet consequence of walking away from something real. The world will keep moving, sure. He'll smile, he'll laugh, he'll date. But the space you once held the way you held it will always feel a little too quiet without you. And no matter how many people he meets, they won't match the way you made him feel. Because love like yours, it doesn't come around twice, not in the same form, not with the same heart. But here's the most important part. His wondering is not your responsibility. You don't need to stay visible so he can find comfort. You don't need to prove you've moved on. You don't need to help him heal from the absence he created. That's his journey now. Yours is different. Yours is about peace, growth, and becoming the version of yourself that doesn't wait around for someone to recognize your worth. So let him wonder. Let the questions swirl in his mind long after you've stopped needing the answers. Let his curiosity fill the silence you left behind. Because the truth is, when someone walks away from what's real, the wondering never really ends. It just hides in moments they never expect and hits hardest when it's already too late. That's the thing most people don't understand. Leaving doesn't always mean freedom. Sometimes it means guilt. Sometimes it means sitting alone, knowing they had something rare, something honest, deep, and loving, and they couldn't step up to meet it. Not because the love was wrong, but because they weren't ready to become the version of themselves that love was asking for. You didn't ask for perfection. You weren't waiting for some fantasy. You just wanted truth, consistency, and a little bit of courage. But that's the part that scared him. Because to love you the right way would have meant growth. It would have meant being honest, showing up, and staying steady when things got hard. And some people, even if they want, you just aren't ready to do that kind of work. So they run. They tell themselves it's too much, too fast, too complicated. They convince themselves that it's not the right time, or that they need to figure themselves out. But deep down, even in their most silent moments, they know it wasn't about the timing, it was about their fear. They weren't brave enough to hold the kind of love you were offering, and one day that will haunt them. Regret is a slow burn. It starts small, a memory, a flashback, a name they hear in conversation. A photo that appears out of nowhere, but then it grows, it builds, because they start seeing how rare that kind of love really is. How the loyalty you gave without question isn't something they've found again. How the way you made them feel seen, understood, and safe was actually extraordinary, not ordinary like they assumed when they had it. And here's the hardest part for them. They'll realize you didn't leave because you stopped loving them. You left because they didn't have the courage to meet you halfway. You gave them chance after chance, and they hesitated, they fumbled, they played small, and now they have to live with that. That's when the shadow appears, the kind of regret that doesn't scream, but whispers constantly. In relationships that don't feel as real, in connections that lack depth, in the quiet of night, when they finally understand the difference between someone who loved them enough and someone who loved them fully. But don't wait for that regret to catch up to him. Don't pause your healing for the moment he finally sees what he lost, because your life isn't meant to be spent waiting for someone to find the courage they should have had when you were right there, loving them with everything you had. Let the regret be his teacher. Let the shadow walk beside him. You walk in the light now, the light of your own growth, your own clarity, your own decision to never again shrink yourself for someone too scared to rise to your level. The apology might never come, the explanation might stay buried, and the moment you stop needing those things to make peace with your past, that's the moment you truly begin to heal. Because real closure doesn't come from someone else tying up the loose ends. It comes from you choosing to no longer live in the waiting room of someone else's awareness. He might never understand how deeply he hurt you. He might never fully grasp the weight of what he let go. And honestly, that's okay. He doesn't need to. His clarity isn't your cure. You don't need his permission to move on. You don't need his guilt to validate your pain. You don't need to hear "I'm sorry," just to know that you deserved better. You already knew that long before he had the courage to admit it. That's the most freeing truth of all. Your healing isn't dependent on his evolution. It's not tied to the version of him that finally gets it, after you've already walked away. You don't have to stick around emotionally or mentally, waiting for the moment he realizes what he lost. That moment, it's his to live through, but it's not yours to wait for. You get to choose peace today. Not someday, not after he reaches out, not after he grows up. Now, right now, you get to put down the story you've been carrying, the one that says you need his words to make sense of what happened. You don't. What happened may never make perfect sense, but that doesn't mean you can't move forward with clarity, because here's the truth. If you needed his apology to heal, you'd be giving him control over your heart all over again. And after everything you've already been through, haven't you given enough? Haven't you stayed long enough in the space between hoping he sees you and realizing he never really did? So no, you don't need him to fix it. You need to forgive yourself for thinking it was your job to carry the weight of the entire relationship. You need to let go of the version of you that thought you weren't enough, or that being more patient, more loving, more forgiving might have changed the outcome. Because the right love doesn't require you to overextend yourself just to be seen. The power has always been yours, not in forcing him to acknowledge what he lost, but in choosing to reclaim what you almost lost trying to love him yourself. Your voice, your peace, your sense of wholeness. So take a deep breath and release the story, release the expectation, release the apology that never came, not because he didn't owe it to you, but because you've grown beyond needing it. He may still be figuring out what he walked away from. Let him. That journey belongs to him. Your journey is different now, not about proving anything, not about being right, but about being free. And freedom doesn't sound like "I'm sorry." It sounds like peace. And peace is what you deserve, not later, not when he comes around, now.